Order the Delray Beach Planning and Zoning meeting Monday, January 22nd, 2024 at 6 p.m. Diane, will you please call the roll?
Chris Brown.
Here.
Christina Morrison absent. Gregory Snyder.
Here.
Morris Christarfin.
Here.
Aaron Savage absent. Allison Thomas.
Here. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, please. We would like to add some director comments after the approval of the agenda. And we would also like to ask for board consideration on item 10A to allow the residents that would like to speak on that item to speak at that item instead of during general public comment.
Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Diane, will you call the roll?
Chris Brown.
Yes.
Christina Morrison absent. Gregory Snyder.
Yes.
Morris Christarfin.
Yes.
Aaron Savage absent. Allison Thomas.
Yes.
Okay, so this takes us to director comments. For the record, I'm Anthea Geniotis. I'm the Development Services Director. And I just want to take a minute to acknowledge the loss of our chair, Julian Blankenship. Julian served on the Planning and Zoning Board since December of 2018. She contributed in a lot of meaningful ways to many items before P&Z. She provided a lot of thoughtful commentary, thorough review of the materials, always. And I would also like to say that in all her years of service, she missed one meeting. So she contributed both to city-initiated efforts, like the Always Delray Plan in 2019, which guides growth decisions moving forward in the city. She also contributed to the adoption of the South Pear CBD district, which moved part of a conventional zoning district into the form-based code that's been so successful to the revitalization of downtown and spread that effort. The list goes on. There are a lot of items that came before that I don't necessarily think she would approve of their final application necessarily, but certainly her input made all of those projects better. And so we just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge her contributions, and that's it for me. And I don't know if the board would like to say anything as well. It's a loss.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo your comments. I found her to be really insightful, well-prepared, and very intelligent, and really a wonderful addition to the board. And we'll miss her a lot.
Mr. Brown, would you like to say? I don't think you're on. There's a button. Thank you. Got it.
I'll get organized in a minute. It's going to be a very difficult chairperson to replace. And I just want to say I'm going to miss her personally because of her professionalism. She was fantastic. Didn't always agree with her, but she was a fantastic chairperson.
Mr. Christopherson, have you anything to add?
No, other than I can echo just the short time of being on the board with her. Always well prepared, always have an insight on the project. So it's just, I just learned of this maybe yesterday, late yesterday. So, but it's always a difficult time. You lose someone that you admire.
I echo what my colleagues said. I feel like it's a sad time for us here in Delray. She did so many wonderful things. I looked up to her, and her insight is definitely going to be missed. Okay, so moving on to approval of the minutes. Is there any change?
So we just have to do
Sorry.
the approval of the agenda as amended.
Okay. Sorry, thank you. I thought we did.
We did that.
We didn't do a motion.
Yeah, we did.
Us.
I I move to accept the amendment.
Oh.
Mr.
Well, we-
Brown second, and we
the roll
voted.
call. Okay. My bad.
Okay, so, are there any changes to the minutes, or can we have a motion to approve them? And that is for, both November 27th, 2023 and December 18th, 2023.
Move to approve.
Second.
Diane?
Chris Brown,
Yes.
Christina Morrison absent, Gregory Snyder,
Yes.
Morris Christopherson,
Yes.
Aaron Snyder, Savage, is absent, Allison Thomas.
Yes. Now, at this time, if anyone from the public that wishes to speak, Diane, will you please swear
Excuse
them
me,
in?
just a moment.
Sorry.
I just want to point out the adoption of the bylaws on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
I can speak to this point. The bylaws are reviewed every 2 years, and we will just need Ms. Thomas's signature.
Okay.
And just for you guys to know, the significant change is that we've modified the time limit required to meet quorum from 30 minutes to 15 minutes. So moving forward, that'll be the time limit.
Okay.
So we'll just need a motion and your signature.
Yeah, I think there's, I'm not on. I think there's something wrong with the first line of Article 3. It says, or the second line, it says the board clerk, blah, 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 blah. Keep minutes of proceedings and place on the next meeting agenda for approval by the board, which doesn't make sense to me. It should be either place items on the agenda.
Okay. Thank you.
So I recommend that modification to the bylaws.
So they have already been approved by the commission.
Oh, okay, well, never mind that.
I do
What are
appreciate
what are we here for then?
what was that, sorry?
So we will definitely carry the comment back and have the city attorney review the article that you raised issue with, and then
Okay, and
she can,
thank you.
She can double check it. So thank you for reading it so thoroughly.
That's what they pay me for. Oh, wait.
So I need a motion. May I please have a motion and a second?
Do we have a motion?
Second, I don't know.
I'll make the motion.
Diane?
Who made the second?
Second,
Thank you. Chris Brown,
Yes.
Christina Morrison is absent, Gregory Snyder,
yes.
Morris Christopherson,
Yes.
Aaron Savage is absent, Allison Thomas.
Yes. Now should I do a motion for the minutes? Approved? Danny?
I think you approved the minutes.
No, we approved.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we're on the swearing in of the public.
Okay. Diane, will you please swear in the public, anybody who would like to speak tonight?
Please raise your right hand. By the authority vested in me, the notary of the state of Florida, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay, at this time, I would like to read the quasi-judicial hearing rules.
Comments.
Comments from the public.
Oh, sorry.
On non-agenda items.
Comments for the public for non-agenda items. Hearing and seeing none. And no presentations this evening. So now I will read the rules for the quasi-judicial hearing. This hearing shall be conducted in accordance with the City of Delray Beach quasi-judicial rules. The applicant and the city shall be permitted to present their case. The public shall be allowed to speak for 3 minutes each or a maximum of 6 if the person represents an organization or a group of people who are present but agree not to speak. The City Commission, board members, staff, and the applicant may be allowed to cross-examine a witness. The city or the applicant will be allowed to offer rebuttal testimony. The decision to approve or deny an application or appeal may not legally be made upon personal views as to whether a project is a good project or not, nor may a decision be based on a number of citizens who support or oppose a particular project. The law requires that all decisions must be made on the basis of whether the project meets the requirements of law, the comprehensive plan, and the land development regulations. Okay, now we're going to talk about 9A. Rebecca? Thank you.
Michelle Hoyland, the Historic Preservation Planner, will be handling this item.
Thank you.
Hi, Michelle Hoyland, Principal Planner, Historic Preservation Division. For the record, I'd like to enter file number 2023-139 into the record, a plat major subdivision with waivers for Magnolia Place, also known as Downtown Delray Villas. Mr. Jeff Costello and Gary Iliopoulos are here and will present. And you had a question?
Yes, is there any ex parte communication from the board?
Yeah, I spoke to Mr. Costello on the phone, and I visited the site, and I've looked at the emails that we were given.
I've spoken to Mr. Costello concerning the project, and I also, as Mr. Snyder has stated, drove by the site.
I spoke with Mr. Costello and reviewed the emails that were given and sent to us, and also drove past the site.
And I can say the same. I spoke with Ms. Casella and also reviewed the emails as well that was sent from the residents.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Costello?
Okay. Good evening, Chair, Board. Jeff Costello, JC Planning Solutions, along with Gary Iliopoulos of GE Architecture, representing for the project Magnolia Place. With me tonight is the applicant, Seaside Builders, Tom O'Downey, as well as Council Chris Bernardo and Paul Engel, our surveyor. Just a couple renderings of what is the duplexes that are proposed on this site. And so what's before you tonight really relates to the lots themselves and the replat of the oops, oh no. Oh, how do you go back?
Try the keyboard.
Keyboard. I got it.
Okay, stop showing.
I got it. Okay. It never fails with me. Anyway, so the property, as you can see, is at the very edge of the Old School Square Historic Arts District. It's zoned Old School Square Historic Arts District on Southeast First Avenue, just across from CBD zone property. Just keeping this in context as far as where this property is located, at the northwest corner of First Avenue and 2nd Street, and what is surrounding this property. As you can see, higher density to the east, lower density, more historical contexts, single-family homes and businesses to the west. Just a quick review of the property. This is from the south to the north, a fourplex, duplex, and another duplex on this property. Surrounding, it's to the west, we have some recent renovations to a historic structure and multifamily, two-story structure, as well as another duplex on a 50-foot lot and some other residential, commercial, and residential properties, historic structures themselves on 50-foot lots. We're just going to go around the block. Again, this is the one you saw on Architect's Office on Swinton, the multifamily, again, the duplex, another single family, the commercial, and just going on around. With regard to this, on the north end of the block, which has an overlay, that is proposed office building, 4-story office building. And then just to the north of our site is another multifamily, four units on a smaller lot. To the east is 111 Southeast First Avenue, a 5-story condominium, as well as the City Walk project, 3 and 4-story structures. Just keep it in the context again. Here's the zoning is OSHAD, yet to the north there are properties along First Avenue that are subject to the Central Business District overlay. And so while looking at these, taking that into consideration, there are the development pressures on this block. These are blighted properties that have not seen investment over the years. And there has actually been applications to try to change the zoning of these particular lots to CBD. Again, those have not been approved. However, you understand that overlay has basically creeped on First Avenue down to the alley within this block. This block was platted in 1915. A majority of the lots are 50-foot wide lots. In this block, highlighted in blue, are these particular properties. Basically, it's 6 50-foot wide lots and a half of another lot. On September 19th, the City Commission did approve for this project a reduction in the right-of-way. And I'm sure staff will go into more detail as far as what recently transpired at HPB, but the commission did approve the reduction in the right-of-way for First Avenue from 50 feet to 40 feet, which relates to how these lots were, or the duplexes on these lots were designed. So, with regard to the plat itself, again, replat, recombination of existing non-conforming lots, 6.5 to 5. With this proposal, though, there is a requirement in the OSHAD that there's a minimum 80-foot frontage and lot width requirement. That's basically synonymous in this case. It's the same for each. And so the proposal in this case is to allow some flexibility, basically in approximately 65-foot wide lot. You can see it at 65.82 at the corner, and then at the south end, adjacent to, where we go? Second at the intersection, and then the balance of these are 64.8 feet wide. That requires a waiver to section 434C, E, and K of the LDRs. Again, this does provide a 2.5-foot right-of-way dedication, dedication of 5-foot sidewalk easements along both the west and the east side of the property, and it also corresponds with the general utility easement. Also, in working with the city staff and the fire department, lots 2 through 4 include emergency access easements to the rear units of these duplexes that face the alley. Again, these 5 duplexes we feel will comply with all the applicable requirements related to the OSHAD. Again, this is just a larger view of the plat itself. And then just for context, the plat and as it relates to how the properties show up on the property appraiser, again, with this, there are provisions that, if you own 2 non-conforming lots next to each other, that you have to comply with the regulations. However, there are waivers to those requirements in lots of record 4.1.4C. We, moving forward, just requested that, look, just transparent, we want to just combine these lots and or requesting relief to the lot width and frontage. Again, this is a 2.5-foot dedication on the alley, and then the 5-foot sidewalk easements, just improving the pedestrian connectivity within this block in such close proximity to the downtown in order to accommodate the easement in the rear and the pedestrian access. The buildings are actually shifted to the east, basically improving the transition between the higher density and the lower density historic structures along Swinton, and they increase the rear setbacks at being sensitive to those particular to those structures. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Gary to go through the site layout.
How do you do that flashlight? Oh, that's kind of neat. I like that. Good evening. normally when you're looking at a plat, you're not really looking at the architecture that's going there, but we did feel it was relevant due to the area that we're in. Jeff touched upon some things about what we're dealing with. And one of the things that we're dealing with, and you are dealing with the historic district, is the streetscape. So the streetscape is usually going to be along First Avenue, along here that you're dealing with. One of the things we were asking for relief was the building height plane. Okay, so as the building tiers back, if it steps back, we have to meet certain heights. But the amazing thing is there is no criteria for the alley side. So I want you to realize where we are. The alley side is where we're abutting the one-story historic structures. The east side is where we're abutting the CBD, and the structures range from 48 feet all the way up to 60 feet. So I think that's one thing that's important. The other part I think that's important is the fact that it is a different look of an alley. I realize most people look at an alley as a service way, and it's basically for trash pickup and everything. But why not make an alley nicer? Why not have the sidewalks that we're going to have? Why not have the light posts that we're going to have and the actual frontages that these structures will be having? I think it actually makes for a better feel for the alley and the abutting historic structures. Upstairs, so all these buildings basically have two frontages, one that's facing First and one that's facing the alley. They also all have porches throughout. One of the things that we're trying to do with these things, this is this downtown living. We're trying to give them good square footages, but we're trying to give them, they all have 3.5 bathrooms. They have laundry rooms up and down. They have 2-car garages. They're actually 22 feet by 23 feet, so they actually are going to be able to park cars here. As you go through these structures and we move up the alley, so this would be lots 2 and 4, you're seeing again, Jeff talked about what's in red on both sides of this property are sidewalk easements. What we also did for the fire department, we wanted to make sure along the alley, that sidewalk and the additional right-of-way is actually designed for fire trucks. Should they have to pull up, they have more room. So that's going to help assist us there. The other part that's kind of interesting is when you're looking at the structures that we're proposing, you're looking at the second floor. The second floors, okay, picture this, they're going against the one-story historic structures. We are shifting them back, ranging from 28 feet to 33 feet. I want you to understand the code is 10, okay? Now, we actually can go 3 stories on the back part and ignore the ones to the west of us. I think this is the most compassionate way that you can actually do a development and go against the transition that we're talking about, the high rises on the east side of us and going towards the low rises, which would be on the west of us. All these units are typically about the same. What you are seeing right along here, Jeff talked about this. So what happens is this is an easement. It is for the fire department to access from Southeast First Avenue. The concern was having a ladder truck going up the alley. They would not be able to turn around, so we provided this extra access, if you will, to the rear units. We also are fire sprinkling these buildings. These buildings are not supposed or don't have to be fire sprinkled. We're doing that also to accommodate the fire department to make this a better project for the area. Again, as you see in all these, they all come with porches. They all have variations. We do meet all the setbacks, sides and fronts and rear. Again, there's the architecture right there that you're seeing. It is a French colonial style that is found within the district, and we have several of the so-called elements that you would find in this district on all the buildings. So there you have, this is lot 1. Lots 2 and 4, and 3 and 5. With that, I'm going to turn it back to Jeff. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gary. With regard to the plat findings, positive findings can be made with regard to LDR section 3.1.1. Consistency with the land use map, the OSHAD zoning is preferred with the historic mixed-use land use designation. Duplexes and related amenities are permitted in the district, and the lot sizes are greater than the 8,000, the minimum 8,000 square feet, and the units are situated that each one would meet the minimum 4,000 square foot portion of the overall lot if subdivided. So with regard to concurrency, there are no issues with concurrency. Positive findings can be made with regard to concurrency. Consistency at a comprehensive plan. Positive findings can be made with regard to the comp plan, specifically the historic preservation element, economic prosperity element, the neighborhood districts and corridors element, as well as the housing element. This provides a housing product in the downtown core as desired. There's standards for plat actions 3.2.3. You have them in your backup. Just putting them up on the screen. Some apply and some don't. For those that do apply, we feel we meet those requirements. The development proposal provides the desired pedestrian connections, accommodated via the 5-foot sidewalk easements, providing the 2.5-foot alley right-of-way dedication, and it's redevelopment of non-residentially zoned property in a manner that is consistent with the adjacent developments. The proposal is complementary to, again, and compatible with the adjacent land use, both of the existing and proposed. Feel that the proposal furthers the stabilization and revitalization efforts within this area, and as specified within the OSHAD, the purpose and intent of the OSHAD zoning district to improve the environmental quality and overall livability of the historic district and stabilize and improve property values therein. Oops, here I did it again. There we go. Keep going. Nope, back. So, yes, and in regard to the LDRs, we feel that we comply with the LDRs. There is the one item with regard to the waiver of the lot width in 431D. Basically, the finding would be made that it is necessary and appropriate to create such a nonconformity. Kind of went through the history of this with regard to the platted lots at 50 feet. We did feel that these lots are greater than the original platted lot in size and consistent with the predominant development pattern, especially lots along South Swinton Avenue, which contain the historic structures. We feel that they're, again, complementary to and compatible with the adjacent land uses. The widths and structures will improve the streetscape along Southeast First Avenue within the OSHAD. These are blighted properties that have had a negative impact on the surrounding area and a blighting influence really on the area. I feel that this is the opportunity to really enhance this portion of Southeast First Avenue. And we're just requesting some flexibility to the development standards in order to allow these to proceed and be developed. And we're not requesting any rezoning. We're trying to work within the context with some release of the OSHAD. And with that concludes my presentation, and appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Michelle?
Yep.
Thank
One
you.
moment.
Sure.
Oh, you don't? Okay. At least minimize is working today. Yeah. Just to open it? Yeah. Okay. Thanks for your patience. So again, Michelle Hoyland, Principal Planner for the record. This is a major subdivision plat and waivers for the project known as Magnolia Place. You'll see on the screen here we have downtown Delray Villas. This is what we've been working with for this project through our review. So there's been a moniker, a name change happening for the applicant. This property is located along and I'm going to show you the existing structures here, the south side of Atlantic Avenue. So we're at Southeast First Avenue on the west side of the street, 1 block south of Southeast First Street. So it's between the 1 and 200 block of Southeast First Avenue. And the property contains 3 structures. All are, for historic purposes, considered non-contributing, meaning that they are not historically designated or considered historic to date, with the exception of this structure, which is slated for future consideration. It has not yet been deemed a contributing structure, but is included in a report that a consultant that the city hired to study the districts. This one was identified as a potential contributor. This is a quadruplex, and it faces Southeast 2nd Street, so it's at the southernmost lot of this 5-lot subdivision. The property also contains some vacant portions, and this is the northernmost structure within that block. So here you can see the current lot configuration. These are the legal lots of record per the property appraiser's website. 3 of the 4 properties have structures on them. And what's before you tonight, the configuration, is a new plat to create 5 new lots within these 4 lots here. So reconfiguration of their lot lines. That request is to facilitate a 5 duplex project or projects, because they've all been reviewed by the Historic Preservation Board as 5 separate individual requests. The property is zoned OSHAD, and within, I'm going to go back to this aerial. Within OSHAD, we have Old School Square Historic Arts District, which is the zoning designation, and then we have Old School Square Historic District. That's the name of the historic district. This is the only one in the city where the name sounds the same, but there's one slight difference with that A in the acronym. So the Old School Square Historic District was one of the original 4 of our 5 historic districts created in the late 1980s. And this property, like I said, has been in this configuration. There was a home on the vacant lot at one point in time that had been demolished. Part of the request with the Historic Preservation Board, which is separate, and I want to try to be clear that any design looking appearance related items, that is all part of the certificate of appropriateness, which functions as like the site plan, only reviewed with the Historic Preservation Board. So I just want to keep us on track that we are looking at lot configurations tonight. Should we need to go back to it, this is a screenshot of the plat itself. Now for matter of process, these are the standards in the code. I put them in the report. I put them here. Should we need to go back and refer, a plat is required for a subdivision of any lot, tract, parcel of land, dedications, layout of the property. So we're going to talk a little bit about right-of-way widths. With this proposal of the creation of 5 new lots, we have some dedicated right-of-way occurring along the north-south alley in the rear of the property. That's at the top of the screen in red. That is 2.5 feet because the alley is substandard in width. Also included in the rear, the city engineer had required a sidewalk in the rear of the property because the design of the project has rear-loaded units. So he wanted to make sure that the project met requirements for accessibility and public safety purposes, which is a required standard that the board needs to review. You'll see vertical green lines here. These are access walkways. So as the applicant mentioned, as part of the safety review, the fire department had deemed the north-south alley insufficient for access purposes for the fire trucks. Emergency service vehicles cannot navigate the alley and safely provide service, life safety service, to its residents. So the access ways you see here are sidewalks that access the rear of the units. So there's doors on the side of the rear units that open up to these so that there can be access from First Avenue, not the alley. Also included in the request is a right-of-way. There was a right-of-way dedication requirement for Southeast First Avenue. The street is currently 45 feet in width, required to be 50. The applicant requested a reduction of that, which was denied by DSMG, the Development Services Management Group. That's a staff-led group. And then that decision was appealed to the City Commission. The Commission ultimately approved that right-of-way reduction in lieu of a sidewalk and access easement for pedestrians, also general utilities. So you'll see this green line on the bottom of the drawing. That is the sidewalk that's proposed for each of the lots that span the distance of the property. So when we do our review, we're looking at the required findings. Does the property comply with the future, or the land use map, no longer called future, land use map designation? In this district, it's historic mixed use, HMU, with the OSHAD zoning. Across the street to the east is CBD and CC, which are separate zoning and land use map designation. But this property complies with the required land use map designation, and the proposed use of residential is a permitted use. So this is a mixed use district that allows commercial and residential. We also look at concurrency based on what the requirements of the comprehensive plan state. The review includes multiple elements of the comprehensive plan, including the historic preservation element. There's also a requirement for consistency, finding that the project has an overall consistency to be ensure that it's not in conflict with Article 3.2 of the land development regulations. Those are performance standards. The historic preservation element here is listed. There are no concerns with respect to soil or topography or anything like that, but there are concerns with the proposed layout of the lots. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that as we get into the standards for site plan and plat actions. Number E specifically is development of residentially zoned vacant land shall be planned in a manner consistent with adjacent development regardless of zoning designation. There is concern noted because while the city may have 50-foot wide lots, 40-foot wide lots, 25-foot wide lots in some neighborhoods, the consistent lot pattern here is varied throughout this historic district. You might have a 50-foot wide property directly adjacent to 100 or 125-foot wide property. So in order to comply with these standards, number E here requires a waiver. So the board needs to consider if the proposed lot configuration from 4 lots existing of varying widths to 5 lots consistent width, that's something that the board needs to give consideration to in your deliberations. Additionally, you'll see here that we have standards from the historic preservation section of the LDRs. And note, this is the first plat that went to Historic Preservation Board pending the most recent Chapter 2 updates. Plats don't typically go to HPB, but because when a plat now has a waiver, it requires that recommendation for review from the Historic Preservation Board. The Historic Preservation Board is going to be more focused on the site layout, the design, consistency, and compatibility with the historic requirements. However, we have noted here Section 4.5.1 and Standard 9 of the Secretary of the Interior standards. So as I said, that the HPB has done their review, but this board needs to consider, again, if that proposed lot layout is consistent with the lot pattern in the historic neighborhood. Also, whether the requested waivers, which we're about to go through, are those necessary to result in a development form that's not necessarily compatible with the Old School Square Historic District's development pattern. So part of the request in order to develop these 5 lots is a waiver. Within OSHAD, there's 80-foot lot width minimums. The properties meet the lot depth requirement of 100 feet, but the proposed lots do not meet the lot width requirement, nor the lot frontage requirement. They vary from 65.82 feet in width to 64.80 feet in width. Here's a breakdown of each lot. You can see lot 1 is the one with the 65.82. That is the one on the southernmost portion of the property. It's on the corner of 1st and 2nd. The other lots are all 64 feet, .80. These are for reference purposes, again, should you need to go back to look at them. How do you approve a waiver? What are the findings? Within the LDR section 4.3.1, the finding is only that the development application, which are the associated COA requests, that it is necessary and appropriate to create the nonconformity. So this will become a nonconformity instead of the 80-foot wide, 65 feet and less. The traditional waiver findings are listed here, and you can see what those standards typically require, which is partly why the necessary and appropriate is also instituted here in this request. But again, is this a necessary and appropriate requirement? So to create these lot widths that are characterized in a district with a mixture of lot widths and sizes that greatly range from 50 to 100 feet, within the subject block, the historic development pattern will result in a variety of lot widths, except for these 5. They will become consistent, a pattern of 5 houses that are exactly 5 structures that are exactly the same. The agglomeration of the property has occurred in the surrounding property, which is Sunday Village, and great focus was given to the historic structures facing Swinton Avenue to maintain their distance on their lots, open space between the structures. These are all typical HPB requirements. So while this is not a huge departure from the historic district, in that you would have structures built on 5 lots, the subdivision creates narrower lots than expected. So we have properties that the code didn't anticipate, resulting in part of the request with the COA in variances for lot setback requirements, lot coverage requirements, and building massing controls, such as the building height plane waiver that the applicant mentioned. The proposed swimming pools for the property encroach into the setbacks, also part of the COA request, not part of yours. So finally, for the first waiver that we're looking at, which is lot width, it's also important to remember that the COA includes demolition of structures. There's a little bit of a chicken and an egg approach that happens with plats, in that you cannot plat property that have structures on them. So structures have to be demolished before the final plat is recorded. But within a historic district, you can't demolish a structure until you receive a building permit for the new construction. So some of this is being handled, should the request be approved, through the language within the proposed resolution. So those structures are being demolished to create 5 new lots. This is not an existing vacant property. This is the same analysis in theory for the lot frontage, so I don't want to be duplicitous in my testimony here. Again, the most important thing here is the plat with the associated waivers, are the waivers necessary and appropriate to facilitate the plat creation of vacant lots, essentially, within an existing historic district with its existing historic pattern. We did talk about fire access already, so the fire department has been addressed, and I don't want to repeat that testimony. This is just here for information purposes. There's been some discussion about naming the alley in the rear of the property. It is not a requirement for addressing purposes, since these lots will have those access ways on the sides, but should the alley be named, there is a procedure that needs to be followed. Because they're arranged in such a way that lots are so narrow, we do have 5 units fronting an alley. It's a non-traditional approach for residential configuration. But this action would have to go before the city commission, should the alley be named. I'm mostly putting it here so when we get to commission, we've addressed this item because it has been something important to the commission in their recent meetings. Also here, you're going to see, following this slide, there are some site plan technical items. We cannot impose conditions on a plat. The plat must be a final form in order for the city commission to approve and sign, should the commission decide to approve. If you have questions about what these two technical items mean, I have graphics and a hidden slide should you want to look at them. But the applicant is aware that there are a couple minor notes that need to be adjusted on the plan. The street name along the south side of the property is Southeast First, not Southeast 2nd Street, where I think it says Northeast First Street right now, or Northeast 2nd Street. And also a reference to Tract B. So technical items you don't have to read into the record as a condition of approval or anything, but they are noted for the applicant to get that cleaned up. When the request went to the Historic Preservation Board, the plat was recommended for denial by a vote of 4-3. That was last Wednesday, January 17th. The plat, major concerns that the board had was some reference to the CBD overlay proximity. The board did not feel that that was a justification for this site. Rather, CBD overlay justifications are appropriate for CBD overlay zoned properties. Associated with the COA, there was some discussion about rhythm of the streetscape that carried over into the plat discussion, the creation of the repetition of the 5 structures on the narrow lots. Noted that the property is not currently vacant, which has been utilized as a partial justification by the applicant, and the board felt that the proposed lot sizes were too small, not meeting the requirements of code. So they did ultimately forward a recommendation of denial for this project. That concludes my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It is now time for public comment. Does anybody wish to speak on this item? Seeing and hearing none. Okay. Yes, could you please come over to the podium on my left? And will you please state your name and address for the record?
Yes, my name is Gary Rice. This project, quite honestly, doesn't affect me at all. The only thing I will say is you all have a very difficult job because it's changing. Everything is either about money or quality of life. And that's how I look at it. And it's a very difficult position because every individual has a right to make money, but also every individual has a right to quality of life also.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you for the opportunity, Board.
Your name and address for the record,
yes,
please.
My name is Joseph Pascarella. I'm in Unit 418 at 111 Southeast First Ave in Delray Beach. I'm also a resident of Delray Beach and have about 50 years of real estate appraisal and brokerage expertise. And I can honestly tell you that this project is very attractive to us, being neighbors across the street. It would be a major improvement to that neighborhood. We welcome the office building directly across the street from our unit. Again, replacing what is obviously a very derelict site. We don't see people walking up and down that street. It's just very unattractive and very unwelcoming and very disappointing if it doesn't get built the way I see it here in the presentation. Very attractive. It's five duplexes. Is there some, I guess you would say, a boring atmosphere to that property? The architectural style is not. It's very attractive. And I don't think it's really a boring site at all. I mean, to have simply five houses that look similar to each other is really welcoming, actually. We have other cities around the country, you have literally 100 homes on an individual block. They're all identical. So there's nothing wrong with a homogeneous layout. That concludes my presentation, if you will, and I really fully endorse this project and hope you see so as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lou Zicht. I live at 111 Southeast First. I live on the west side of the building, so I've been looking at what I consider to be a very underutilized, unsightly number of lots across the street that I've been anxiously awaiting to have them developed since I've been there for 4 years, and since I looked at the property, which was 9 years ago. I realize the board has a number of considerations with respect to the request, but I hope that you'll consider that the current use of the property is completely underutilized. It's very unsightly, and the project that's proposed is, in my opinion, beautiful. I love it. I wish it could happen tomorrow. It's very necessary and appropriate. Southeast First Avenue is a unique street because, well, maybe not completely unique, but one side is zoned historic preservation. The side where we live is zoned central business district. I think that should be taken into consideration when you look at the proposed use. And the fact that variances are being requested is because land is so expensive here that for a developer to develop a project within the guidelines isn't always feasible. It has to make economic sense, and I think that should also be taken into consideration. And I know I've talked to a number of other unit owners at the property that are very supportive of this project. We'd like to see it move forward and appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Anthony Marino. I live at 111 also. We've lived across the street from this site for the past 4 years, and honestly, it's an eyesore to everyone that faces it. The multifamily homes that were described as multifamily, one is a bed and breakfast or a motel or a hotel, but I wouldn't consider it personally a multifamily. They're low-income houses, unsightly. The empty lots are used by everyone in the neighborhood to relieve their dogs and pets. We've had homeless people sleeping and living in the empty lots in plywood shed. Cars are parked over there. I volunteer with the beach keepers. I clean those lots a couple of times a week. I try to help prevent the eyesore that's there. We welcome this project. We have 68 units in my building, and the majority of us are 100% in favor of it. I don't know if any of you would be happy living across from what's there. I don't think any of you would be. My own opinion. I don't know if any of you have even walked down a block. You look at site plans, but this is a welcoming addition to our neighborhood, and we appreciate it. And hopefully it moves forward as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else care to speak? Okay. Is there anything, a rebuttal or cross-examination from the staff or the applicant?
We'll be real quick. I just want to repeat, so with regard to the site plan, the standards for plat actions, this is a non-residentially zoned property. It's a mixed-use property. It's not residentially zoned, and it is designed to be compatible with the streetscape. This is consistent with the lot pattern within the historic district, and it's requesting the flexibility to allow basically the flexibility in order to move forward with this project on what we feel is something that provides the transition from the CBD to the more historically significant structures along Swinton Avenue. And on honestly, the five units, we'll say the 5 buildings, will definitely improve the streetscape, especially you're transitioning south from Atlantic Avenue. You're going to have higher, and then these 5 lots, we're talking 5 lots, and how well that'll fit in, even to the transition, not only to the historic district, but as you go further south into the Osceola Park district.
Follow up with Jeff really quick. Michelle did talk about the fourplex, which is at the south side. She's absolutely right. In the new survey, it does talk about designating this historic. For right now, it isn't, but it's interesting because the same company did the survey in '09, and in that one, they called it masonry vernacular. Now they're calling it a ranch. My point is this, for me, and I'm just saying from an architect's standpoint, we usually look at several criteria. One is usually, was there a famous person who lived in the house? Is it 50 years or more? Was it a prominent builder that built it? But I mean, something that has something significant. The bottom line is this happened usually, I think that period was after World War II. It was a minimalist, if you will, style of architecture. Basically, most of the homes that were built like that didn't have architects. They didn't even have plans. They were serving a purpose, which was to house people. But when you talk about historic significance and or anything that has style to it, there is absolutely none. So we really don't feel that is an issue with knocking that building down. Somebody mentioned the quality of life. I do believe this is the quality of life in the neighborhood. We are providing literally 5 structures that have double frontages. They look like single-family homes, which is important. The other thing is when you talk about the height, we're 10 feet below the mean roof height. We can go to 35 feet. So when you look at these structures, yes, as staff has said, we reduce the lot sizes, but we meet all the setbacks. We definitely kick it up a notch when you face historic structures. Having a sidewalk in an alley, nobody has sidewalks in alleys. We're actually going to have those. So we're creating, and actually when you talk about affecting the neighborhood, I think we have a positive effect on the neighborhood, which we abut to the west. They talk about Sunday Villages. I love what they're doing. But with Sunday Villages, those historic structures they're moving, they face historic structures. So you should really take into consideration the context of where we are. Thank you very much.
Do you have anything to add?
I do. I have some. Thanks. I have some rebuttal.
Thank you.
So earlier in the applicant's presentation, they mentioned that there is no criteria for the design of the alley. Again, that's an HPB review related item, not a plat review related item. It's a design related comment, but there are applicable standards to the architecture of a building for front, side, and rear. So I don't agree with that comment. There's been consistent reference to the property as non-residentially zoned, and while I do agree that it's not straight residential, this zoning district, Old School Square Historic Arts District, is a mixed-use district, and a large part of the district is residential or was designed originally as constructed as residential structures. In fact, the purpose of the OSHAD zoning in the beginning of 4.4.24 references that the purpose is that there's adaptive reuse and preservation of these structures. So adaptive reuse does tend itself from a residential structure being converted to commercial. So there is a great mix of residential in this district, but it is mixed use, to be clear. There was reference that the property were blighted, and I fundamentally do not agree with that comment, particularly with the $5.75 million sale price that occurred in May of 2023. The public had referenced some concerns with conditions on the site, and I think it's important to note the 2018 maintenance requirements that went into place in the LDRs, particularly for historic districts, to ensure that we didn't have developers purchasing properties and grouping them together and letting them get to a condition where they would deteriorate, fall apart, or not be cared for. So our code enforcement department, neighborhood and community services, is hard at work enforcing that code requirement. Now I'm sure the residents have their own experience of what's occurring across the street, particularly with Sunday Village. We were seeing some issues with the property north of this that have since been resolved. So we will take those comments into consideration from the public, and I just wanted to note that. Finally, what makes historic preservation the most beautiful building in a historic district, of course, is the one that people are going to desire most. But we see structures that are from the mid-century, where post-war we were seeing a lighter approach with construction, with architectural design. So the structure in question represents an era. It represented the resort era that was occurring in this town. That's why it's a fourplex. So it has its own status for being a potential contributor that our highly acclaimed consultant who studied the property, they felt that it had that. Now, I don't want to sway the board in discussion about historic integrity, because that's not what's before you tonight. I just wanted an opportunity to rebut those comments. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. And now for the board comments. Mr. Snyder, let's start with you.
Yeah, I have a few things. I'd like to ask the staff a couple of questions that are semi-related before I get going. I thought we streamlined the whole process and we were going to get site plans and everything all together. Apparently that's not true.
We have made a drastic change to streamlining the process. So, for instance, what you don't see before you tonight are the COAs that have attendant waivers, variances, and demolition. That's all handled by the Historic Preservation Board. The importance of why the Historic Preservation Board saw the plat, which you would always see plats for a recommendation, was there were some decisions that were made based on an administrative approval process that existed in the code. And the board was being given plans that the design of the lot was already figured out. And they said, we are not okay with this. And that's been something that the board preceding me, maybe back to the time when Mr. Brown was here at the CRA, may remember. Historic Preservation Board has never really liked that they didn't get a chance to weigh in on lot configuration. So it has been streamlined, but we have added them into the process.
Okay. And the other question is, when you do FARs, you round the numbers. You don't use 0.98 as 0.98, you use it as 1.0. Is that correct?
Generally, that's correct, yes.
Okay.
For numbers purposes, we didn't want to mischaracterize it as like 0.6. So we wanted to be clear in this instance.
What I'm saying is
yes.
that I don't think it's FAR, but it's 10 units on.
So you're talking
It's 10 units
density.
on 1 acre, but it's 10 units on 0.98
Yeah.
acre.
Yeah, your density.
Okay, all right. So what I really want to say about this plat is, yeah, a lot of people are coming up to the podium and saying, this property needs something done to it. And I don't think there's any question about that. But that doesn't mean that this is what needs to be done. I think that arguing that because they're grandfathered lots of smaller size based on a 1915 plat doesn't necessarily mean that we need to go forward with smaller lots, because the LDR was written with the 80-foot width frontage on purpose. And that's what the city wants. And so if we're gonna give a waiver here, I know Mr. Bennett's not here, but he constantly harps on we don't set precedents. But if we give this, we're saying it's okay to put more smaller lots. And I think that if that happens, there's one of two things. Either it will continue to be smaller lots put in, and that's a detriment to the area. If we allow this and don't allow anybody else to do it, aren't we granting a special privilege?
If I can just
Yeah, please.
If I can just comment that, anytime a request comes before you, you are viewing it individually for its
Understand.
merits. So I would just recommend to just review what has been presented right now.
Okay, I'm just saying it's,
And then just to be clear, that the board's role at this point is a recommendation to city
Understand.
commission, just so the final decision doesn't rest here. However, of course, you're here playing an important role in that consideration. And ultimately, your finding is whether it's necessary and appropriate
yeah,
to do this.
understand.
So,
And I think
yeah.
the reason a waiver is to be given because there's a circumstance that can't be resolved normally. The reason that this can't be resolved normally is because the applicant wants 5 lots. The applicant could have 4 lots and put in 8 units that face the street and wouldn't need a waiver. And therefore, it's not necessary. And I think that, the Historic Preservation Board didn't like it, and I don't like it. And based on that, I don't think it's necessary and appropriate. And I don't think it's in a benefit to the neighboring area. And I can't support it.
Mr. Snyder. Oh, sorry, Mr. Brown.
Mr. Brown, thank you very much. I just want to say just a few words. The neighbors in 111, thank you very much. Your arguments were very compelling, and I totally agree with your observation of the blight that's across the street from your project. But I want to say one other thing, and that is something about building types. And Thea, you're an expert in building types. I have to congratulate Mr. Eliopoulos for this building type. It's a clever duplex. And it kind of reminds me of my experience in Philadelphia, where you had very tiny alleys in downtown Philadelphia in urban neighborhoods. And oddly enough, the most valuable properties were those that were on small little brick streets. And I congratulate Mr. Eliopoulos for this building type. It's unusual. I haven't seen it often, back-to-back duplexes. But you do preserve the look of a single-family house, and that's what's important, particularly to those residents of 111. And thank you for coming in.
Thank you. Mr. Morris. Sorry, I messed it up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a tendency to agree and disagree with some of the comments. I think every project is very unique, and we have to look at it as a unique project. I don't think us voting one way set precedents in the future for any projects. Just based on my experience being here in Delray, I've seen where waivers has been denied, and I've seen where waivers has been approved, just based on the significance of the project. So in this case here, I do agree that there is an opportunity to put 4 units versus 5, but from a financial standpoint, I look at it as well that those units could, I know we're not here to discuss financial contributions, tax base, what it'll do for tax base here in the city of Delray Beach, but at the same time, it'll provide additional living. I know that area pretty well. It definitely would give it a facelift, compare it what it was based on what's there now. Also, there was a comment made from staff, and I want to know a question for staff. Have there been any violations for us given on that property?
We have not done an analysis. This is not a property that pops up as a hotspot for us.
Okay, thank you. That's all the comments I have on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there was if I may ask you a question, Michelle, there was a comment made, I think, in your staff report that said this property was in a report. Is that correct?
Yes, the 2020 Delray Beach Historic Preservation resurvey, 5-district resurvey. That was done again, beginning of COVID. The report has not yet been adopted by ordinance. It will be brought before the Historic Preservation Board, possibly this board and the City Commission.
Okay, thank you. And while I appreciate that and HPB for what they do, they're great at what they do. They look at the past, and I think that we need to focus on also looking at the past and the present and the future. And as we look at each project individually, as we all do, and if we didn't need waivers from time to time, then we wouldn't offer them in general. And so when you see that the area that you drive past isn't quite desirable now, as many of the residents said, and thank you for coming out, we have to then look at what is the best for the residents and also for the city of Delray. And I think the care and thoughtfulness that they have put into the project has me very excited. I drive past it almost every day, so seeing something there that enhances our city is very welcomed for me, and I am for it. So at this point, I guess I would like a motion.
I can make a motion to approve.
A second.
Can we read the title?
Good.
Would you read it off for me?
I can hand it to you.
It's on the screen as well, if you can see that. I put it here as well.
Yeah, I just don't read.
Yeah.
I can't see it right here.
That's okay.
Thank you, Greg.
Sure.
It's big, thanks.
Recommend approval of the major subdivision plat and waivers 23-139 for the property located at downtown Delray Villas, AKA Magnolia Place, Old School Square Historic District, by finding that the request and approval thereof is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets the criteria set forth in land development regulations. Thank you, Greg.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Diane?
Chris Brown,
Yes.
Christina Morrison absent, Gregory Snyder,
No.
Morris Christophin,
Yes.
Aaron Savage is absent, Allison Thomas.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
very
Thank
much,
you.
everybody. Thank you for staying longer.
Congratulations. And thank you, everyone, for coming out. No, we still have legislative items. At this time, we would like to acknowledge the legislative items 10A. And, yeah, thank you.
I'll state for the record, my name is Susie Rodriguez. I'm a planner for Delray Beach. I would like to enter file number 2024-046 into the record.
Thank you. Do we have a presentation? Initiate your presentation. Okay. Thank you so much.
So the board will be providing a recommendation to City Commission on ordinance number 0824-24. And this is a city-initiated request to amend LDR Section 443, Single Family District, Section 445, RL District, and Section 446, RM District, to adopt a floor area ratio and building articulation regulations for single-family duplex, multifamily properties, east of the intercoastal, as well as amending Appendix A. I think I was on this one, yeah. Appendix A, definitions, to adopt the associated definitions. At the City Commission workshop meeting on January 10th, 2023, City Commission directed staff to develop regulations to govern residential development east of the intracoastal waterway. The home sizes and architecture style has changed since the initial development of these neighborhoods, and there are concerns that the new development are not compatible with the existing neighborhoods. The overall goal is not to eliminate certain architectural styles, but to prevent massive bulky structures and create design standards that are compatible with the existing neighborhoods. So majority of the properties are zoned single family RL or RM. The proposal focuses on these zoning districts and establishes the following FAR. So for single family lots, it'll be at 0.65 FAR in RL and RM. Lots below 30,000 square feet is 0.7, and then above 30,000 square feet is 0.75. Note that any single family development in either RL or RM is subject to R1 standards. The proposed FAR allows for more equal unit sizes relative to unit count and property size, and it allows for developments to be within the required setbacks for each district and adhere to the proposed step back and articulations. So the FAR will aid in reducing bulk structures, but the second part of the proposal is the addition of a 5-foot step back above the second story, and for 26 feet in or 26 feet in height for the rear, side street, and side interior. And it also includes the addition of at least one horizontal articulation, at least 2 feet in depth, with a minimum length of at least 20% of the elevation. These are for the facades exceeding 25 feet in length and facing the side and the rear. This allows the opportunity for appropriate mass distributions that will not flush against the setback and create these massive 3-story walls. Due to the new language proposed, the definitions of horizontal articulation and step back will be added to the Appendix A definitions. And then as for the process and how we determine the numbers and why it works, staff looked at a minimum lot size necessary to build the different number of units based on the max density in each zoning district. Then those lots were then tested against different FARs. And as noted in the staff report, establishing one FAR resulted in smaller and smaller unit sizes as the unit count increased with these larger properties. The proposed FAR allows for more equal unit sizes relative to unit count and the actual property size. Using the proposed FAR and articulations, we created these mock scenarios to visualize what the proposed changes will do. For example, here's a single family house. So this is for a single family house, and the proposed LDR amendment will require the third floor to step back, and we'll be removing that large wall on the rear and the side. So over here, that step back begins to create where it doesn't have that large wall. Then for duplex and multifamily, in this case, we did 6 units. The FAR was at 0.70 and allows for unit sizes ranging between 2,500 to 2,800 square feet. And the articulations prevent these massive walls flush at the setbacks, which even allow for more opportunities for open air terraces and balconies. So for instance, in here, it allows for the third floor to continue to step back, and these articulations where there's no longer this massive wall in the rear and the side. Especially you can see here where there in the rear has this massive wall that continues up all the way to 3 stories. This allows where there's going to be articulations, and the FAR allows it where it's not going to be as massive to the 3 stories. The text amendment is consistent with and furthers the goals and objectives and policies of the comprehensive plan. This includes the goal to enhance the quality and character of the city's neighborhoods, districts, and corridors, and to provide a high quality of life for all residents, encouraging a mix of building types. This also includes the objectives to protect and enhance the Village by the Sea character, and to regularly review and update the LDR to provide timely, equitable, and streamlined processes. Other goals and objectives include to promote, support, enhance, and respect the unique and diverse characteristics of Delray's neighborhoods. The City Commission hearings are anticipated for February 20th and March 5th. And these are your board actions. This concludes my presentation.
Thank you. Are there any public comments? Thank you. Will you please state your name and address?
Yes,
for the
my
record?
name is Hal Stern. I live at 622 Sea Sage Drive in Delray. I'm also the newly installed president of the Beach Property Owners Association. So I'm just going to be making some introductory comments. My product specialists are seated to my left. The mission of the BPOA is to work with city staff, city officials, and other stakeholders to enhance and preserve the quality of life on the Barrier Island. This agenda item is the result of such an effort, and we've worked for 3 years to get to this stage. We are obviously very much in favor of this change to the LDRs, and I'll now let my fellow trustees talk about exactly what we're going to be doing.
Thank you, Hal. My name is Ned Whaler. I'm one of the trustees of the BPOA. I'm here to speak on behalf of the Beach Property Owners Association. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity this evening to speak to you. I'd like to extend our special thanks to the Development Services staff for working so closely with us over the last 3 years in more than a dozen meetings together, trying to work through and ground truth and do reality tests, avoid any unintended consequences with any changes that we make, such as proposed this evening. So thank you very much for your help. All of us are residents of this city. We've all, in one fashion or another, set down our feet in our community, and that's because of the appeal of this community, the character, the charm of our neighborhoods, pretty much fully built out on the Barrier Island. Yet, I'm sure all of us are quite familiar with the changes that occur nearly every day, day to day, week to week, year over year, as teardowns and demolitions occur. New construction is too often being done in a manner where homes are too tall, too close, and too large with respect to existing neighborhoods with the charm and character of our Village by the Sea. And for example, most of the LDRs and, for example, the BPO design manual were developed really mindful in the early years of single family, single story, pitched roof homes. And early on, we established a lot coverage standard of 40% lot coverage, floor area lot coverage. That meant, for example, in a 10,000 square foot lot, one might be able to build a 4,000 square foot home. But gradually over time, homes became two-story. And that coverage ratio allowed homes to be built to 4,000 square feet, as in the example I give. And finally, and of late, and we're all aware, there's many, many three-story homes occurring on these lots in place and infilling for established development in our established neighborhoods. And in cases like that, a home of 12,000 square feet can be built, and some of them are being built that way. I want to illustrate to you some examples. The cover slide here shows you one recently completed on South Ocean Boulevard. Extreme, dominant front to back, side to side, massive new home built 30 feet tall, dwarfing an existing home to the north. The owner of that property is here to speak later, but this is the example of the imposing stature, the loss of privacy, the loss of a sky view that's occurring as teardowns occur and buildings of this magnitude are built. I'll just try to move along here. This is another example on Brooks Lane. You can kind of see the neighboring home, massive flush wall, two-story home, built to about 28 feet high. In addition, raised above the ground because of FEMA-based floor elevation standards where 3, 4, 5 feet of fill is added. Homes on both sides of this have this type of a flush wall now to look at, dwarfing, their privacy and their joy in the quality of life that they have in their home. Okay, I moved the wrong direction. Okay. This is another home in the Seagate neighborhood, Seasage Avenue, Seasage Drive. 3-story home, built roughly 40 feet above grade, flush vertical sidewalls. This was a project of great concern to many neighbors. What's going on with this? Am I pushing the wrong button? Okay, here we go. Jeez. I don't know why I'm having a problem with this.
Let me see if the keyboard's here, because sometimes it's easier if you can just use
Easier to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, those work. Apologies, I'll try to conclude quickly. This being another case along Gleason Street, flush vertical sidewalls, both side and rear, imposed upon neighboring established community. This being a flush second floor sidewall in North Beach area. Just tried to show you some examples. As Hal Stern mentioned, our board has been engaged with this problem since as early as the rooftop uses issues, the appurtenance issues that we addressed 3 years ago. And at that time and since then, the single greatest complaint and concern expressed to our BPOA has been from homeowner members that are concerned about the magnitude of these types of 3-story homes being built in their neighborhoods, depriving them of their privacy and disturbing the charm and character of neighborhoods. So the approach that we took in trying to formulate a remedy was to try to take a simple approach, not change densities, not change zoning, not change lot sizes, but try to follow an example already in the LDRs that's been established for the Lake Ida District. And that was to establish floor area ratios of a magnitude in balance, compatible with, and in proportion to existing neighborhoods. So what you see before you is a very simple change to the LDRs that introduces a floor area ratio that has been tailored to suit lot sizes according to zoning district on the barrier island. These changes are generally modest in nature. They've been described to you. Once implemented, they will bring about a softening and a lessening of the magnitude and impact of massive homes built very close, side to side, rear to rear, front to rear, abutting existing established neighborhoods. That's basically the issue. We appreciate your attention to this. We'd like to invite your endorsement, your recommendation of these proposed changes, and I'll turn this over to others at this time. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. My name is Bill Petrie. I live at 1035 Vista Del Mar, and my comments are to discuss what the impact is of some of these overgrown homes on my neighborhood. My particular street is Vista Del Mar, west of Andrews to the Intercoastal. It's just a block long, really. When we bought in the year 2000, there were 21 homes on this stretch of Vista Del Mar, and 18 of them were single-story cottages, left over maybe a little bit from the earlier years, and we bought one of them, and we just had a fantastic opportunity to enjoy the neighborhood and the people. We met all our neighbors. People were free to walk around and talk to each other, and did all the time. And there were it was just a really pleasant village atmosphere. Well, over the last 20 years, of those 18 single-story families, 12 overgrown homes have been built on these properties, and they use every inch of setback and every inch of available height to get the maximum size building they possibly can. I don't know exactly why, but it's just become the standard. And this has had a real impact on our neighborhood. It has changed. The character of our neighborhood is not what it was before. But I think if 20 years ago, if an FAR had been established, the new homes could have built. And I'm not trying to stand in the way of progress. Of course, we have to continuously make improvements to our overall neighborhoods and the homes that exist there. But if we had it in place 20 years ago when we bought, we would not have the problem and we have today, and a lot of the original culture and ambiance would I believe been preserved. And so, our neighborhood is sort of it's too late, but there's lots of neighborhoods on the Barrier Island that are still perfect, and every day, more and more infill housing is going up, and it's going up at an alarming rate. So the sooner we could do something that would limit some of these massive structures, I think the better the Barrier Island and the city as a whole will be. So those are my personal comments, and appreciate your time. Thank you very much. I really hope you'll recommend approval of the ordinance.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maura Abad, and I live at 902 Sea Sage Drive on the Barrier Island in the Seagate neighborhood. And I've been here for about 11 years with my husband, Chuck Lowe, and my 2 daughters. And when we relocated here about 12 years ago, like many people, we immediately fell in love with Delray Beach. It's got a charming downtown, low-profile buildings. It's a vibrant city. And we also chose our neighborhood because it's a variety of home styles, its historic charm and appeal, and really the beauty of the Barrier Island. And a lot has happened in the years that we've been here. And there's been a ton of teardowns and rebuilds of many homes in our neighborhood. And though I do appreciate the differing style of homes, I know I'm not alone in feeling that some of the new ones built are just way too tall, way too close, and look completely out of character in the neighborhood. And people are building, as you had said, to the extreme, the very extreme limits of what is currently permitted. And with the oversized home, new elevations, and some of these 3-story flat vertical walls with the parapets on top of it, they're just towering over the neighborhood. I know one of the homes that was in the slide presentation is actually directly across the street from me. These homes, they're building them, they're blocking sunlight, they're casting shade upon other homes, they're taking away privacy, and often they have lighting that even spills into adjoining yards. And these homes have a massive height and density, and they're really destroying the charm of the neighborhood. And it's not only our neighborhood, but I walk around other areas of the Barrier Island, and I see it happening all over. It's just these massive, massive structures. And again, people are just building to the limit. And what I'd like to see is some land development rules that really start to limit the mass, the scale, and the height of the homes in the area. I really do think we need it immediately. There are some that people just walk by and everyone just goes, whoa, like those are just way too big for the neighborhood. And I'd love to see that stop. I mean, it's just, and it just continues. I mean, you drive down my street, there's construction vehicles all over the place, and I'd really love to see some restrictions put in place for some of these oversized homes. So I really feel that the city should change the current rules so that homes are constructed in a form compatible with the existing neighborhoods. And I support what they're saying here, adding a floor area ratio standard for each new residence. I also support the concept of building side and rear wall setback and setbacks. And I'm really hoping that the board will approve the proposed ordinance for implementation by the city as quickly as possible. So I just want to thank the board and the Development Services Department for developing the proposed ordinances. And I will also offer the same comments to the City Commission if need be. Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is still Gary Rice, and I am 82 years of age, and I have led a blessed life. The icing on the cake was moving to Delray Beach. I have to say that. And I think we had a home on the Intercoastal corner lot in Boca before we moved here, and it was a pleasure.
Can I get your
to leave Boca.
address?
Pardon me?
Can I get your address for the record?
I'm sorry.
What's your name and your address?
Oh, I'm sorry. 1230 South Ocean. That was our house, the first slide that you saw. I recently had some pictures developed this past week that are 11 months after what you saw on the slide. When the house, and I'm not a builder, I'm not an architect, I'm just a little old salesperson from New York that has been blessed to have a lot of good fortune. And the only thing I will say is, when I don't know something, I'm smart enough to know I don't know it. So when this house was constructed next to us that you saw photos of, I called the city of Delray. They sent over some inspectors, and one inspector said to me, "Can't do anything about it. This is a smart builder that knows what to do." I said, "I appreciate that. What would you ask me to do?" He says, "Keep a diary and a log of everything daily that goes on with this construction." My wife, who's a very aggressive person, took before and after photos of every single thing that went on. You're not going to tear down the house that's next to me now, and we're not going to move. This past summer, I drove with my wife the 35 nights, 8,200 miles up the east coast of the United States. I saw barrier islands that absolutely have been destroyed, and beautiful, beautiful ocean facing, and now the cities, these little towns are going bankrupt. And it's just not, I mean, we did the outer islands, we did everything, and that's why I'm saying we're blessed to live where we live. The only thing personally now that has happened to us is we have zero privacy. We can't go out. This house took 2 years to build. The house was approximately 7,795 square feet. It was in a flood area, so a myriad of dump trucks came and had to put landfill, not earth, landfill. The builder had to put a retention wall and tore down the hedge that we had, which was on 3/4 of our lot, because he came to me and he said, "I'm going to cut my roots and kill your hedge." So he made an agreement with me. He said, "I will replace your hedge." He didn't replace the hedge. And the reason he didn't replace the hedge, because my wife is a gardener. And we went through all the landfill with wire, glass, rocks. And we are not about to plant plants in landfill. That's not the way my wife does things. So that's not the issue. I'm not on any crusade here. We are locked in. No one's going to tear this house down from us. I'm well aware of it. Obviously, what you're thinking is, does this dummy have a lawsuit? Of course I have a lawsuit going against the builder. That's just dollars. 2 years it took to build this house. The people moved in on Christmas of 22, excuse me. They put the house up for resale for $3 million more in September of the following year.
If I could just ask if you could wrap up your comments with the next few
I'm
thoughts.
sorry?
If I could just ask if you could just wrap up your comments since you had 3 minutes allotted
Oh,
to speak.
sorry. I'm done. There is
You
a
can
book,
wrap up.
There is a book that we did construct, if any of you wanted to take a look at the before and afters that are done. As I said, there's nothing I hope to accomplish here except don't let this keep on going on.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to speak? One more.
I'm Hal Stern again. There were several other residents that we solicited for comments. Some of them are out traveling, so they have written letters. I can either read them into the record or submit them. Which would you prefer? What's the appropriate process?
So because they're not here to represent themselves, you can't read them into the record, but you can give them to the board liaison for our file record. And certainly your board is well versed in communicating with the city commission who will consider this next. So I'm sure we can get those comments to them in some form.
So what I'll do is I'll just submit these 3 letters into the record, and I have nothing further to add. We've taken up enough of your time.
And thank you, everyone, for all the time you came down to speak on this. And now we'd like to hear from the board. Mr. Morris, can we start with you?
Thank you for this opportunity. It's actually encouraging to see that how the residents of the city is working with staff to come up with a solution to a problem that's just not in the Barrier Islands, but it has spread it throughout the city of Delray Beach. The overbill and I won't say invasion of privacy, but the line of work that I'm in, I see in these homes all the time. And as we're inside of these homes, you can look on the adjacent property. If it's not the same size property, then that person adjacent to that property has no privacy. If you have a pool area, if you have an outdoor seating area, there's no privacy at that point. So it's kind of encouraging to see that staff and residents is working together to try to, obviously can't go back and change what have already been built, but it can stop it from being a problem in the future. So my question to staff, based on these recommendation changes, how will this impact, and how soon, if it's a project is currently in the process as far as paperwork, would that have any negative impact on that, or how would that work?
So the ordinance, until it's adopted, doesn't take effect. So anybody who has submitted for a building permit prior to this would not be affected by it. I mean, that's generally, they just changed the Florida Building Code in December, and we had a run of permits. So that's just the way that would work. So, you know, it will be anything new that is submitted once the city commission adopts the ordinance. So this board will make a recommendation, and then there are 2 hearings that take place with the city commission, and then it becomes the law.
Thank you.
I'm appalled by what these people have to put up with, and I fully support this.
I think this is excellent legislation, and congratulations to the BPOA for all your hard work. I think it's a model not only for your subdivision and your area, but for other areas in Delray Beach. We need to preserve the neighborhoods, and we need to have buildings that do not impose their will on other neighbors. Thank you very much for coming forward. I'm in favor of it.
I just want to say that I appreciate the care and the time and the effort that you put in to make this recommendation. I think that is a lot of hard work, and to make sure that you're maintaining your neighborhood, but also giving freedoms to the builders still, and who would be buying in your property, so I'm for it. Thank you. May I get a motion?
I'd like to make the motion. Oh, I'll have to read it. Greg, do you want to make it?
I don't care if you got it up
there. Okay. Recommend approval to the City Commission ordinance number 08-24, a city-initiated request to amend section 4.4.3, single-family residential R1 in parentheses districts, Section 4.4.5 low density residential RL district, Section 446 medium density residential RM, and Appendix A, definitions of the Land Development Regulations LDR to adopt floor area ratio and building articulation regulations, and amending Appendix A, definitions to adopt associated definition for single-family, duplex, and multifamily development property east of the Intercoastal Waterway by finding that the amendment is amended. Did I say that? That the amended is amended and approved thereof is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets the criteria set forth in the land development regulations, period.
Second.
Diane?
Chris Brown,
Yes.
Christina Morrison absent, Gregory Snyder,
Yes.
Boris Kostarfin,
Yes.
Aaron Savage absent, Allison Thomas.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations. No, we have two more. We're getting there though. It's one step closer.
And hopefully we can move you through them fast.
Thank you. We're at number 2.
Just gotta
Or
get home before
10B. Sorry, 10B.
my house. What time is it? 7. What time is it? Let's say
We have a copy for
7:46.
Tell your wife she did a good job. Taking all those photos.
This needs to go into the record. Can I keep this? This needs to go into the record.
I have an extra one. I'll give you one of each. How's that?
Okay, how many do?
Take one back. One of each.
Okay.
Okay, my name is Rebecca Dossery, for the record. It's okay. I appreciate your
Thank
comments. Thank you. Rebecca, I think we should. Mr. Snyder, just.
Home stretch.
Perhaps a 5-minute break.
Maybe can we do a 5-minute break?
Yeah, that's
A restroom
fine.
break?
Thank
Yeah.
you. 5 minutes.
He's definitely gone.
It's at 7:51. Delray. So this is the large development at the corner of Germantown Road and Congress Avenue. This is city initiated, and we'll get into on the next slides the reasons why we're asking for this, but we are looking to rename a street that is currently named Palm Drive as Heron Club Drive, and per the LDR, the PZB needs to make a recommendation on street namings. So the street in question is, you can see faintly bubbled there in blue, it runs north to south down the middle of the development. So it's currently named Palm Drive, and we're requesting Heron Club Drive. And our addressing and street naming manual prohibits duplicate names, and so there is another Palm Drive. It's not within the city of Delray Beach, but it has a Delray Beach address. It's unincorporated. And on this map here, it's the light purple, which should perhaps be darker. And so to eliminate any possible concerns or confusion with emergency responses, the best path is to just rename the street. It's at a inconvenient but semi-convenient time within the development path. They're a few months out from having a CO, and they will have to change some internal things, but it won't impact any tenants or residents there. Our comp plan just calls for safe traffic navigation, and so we really think that it's in the best interest of the occupants of Parks at Delray that we rename it Heron Club Drive. It should be noted that at the time that these street names were assigned on the plat, we didn't have an addressing naming policy. So the likelihood that this would happen to any new streets in the future is slim to none. But these are your options for board action, and I can take any questions if you have any.
Is there anybody from the public that wants to speak on this? Hearing or seeing none. Does the board have any comments? Any comments? Mr. Morris, do you have any comments?
You can make maybe Craig would like to make the motion.
I gotta find it. Oh, it's up on there. I move to recommend approval to the City Commission on resolution number 37-24, renaming Palm Drive, a private right-of-way located within Parks at Delray, as Heron Club Drive, finding that the request meets the applicable criteria in the land development regulations.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Diane, will you call roll, please?
Chris Brown,
Yes.
Christina Morrison absent, Gregory Snyder,
Yes.
Morris Costarfin,
Yes.
Aaron Savage absent, Allison Thomas.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So our next item, item 10C, is a city-initiated amendment to amend the definition of the tree trust fund, and we have Mr. Kent Edwards from our Sustainability Division here, and he is going to present on this request if our presentation opens.
Good evening, everyone. I am Ken Edwards, Sustainability Officer for City of Delray Beach, and glad to be here tonight to talk about tree maintenance and tree trust fund definition. So the request is a recommendation for a amendment. This is tree trust fund change, allowing a provision for use of in lieu funds to offset maintenance costs for trees and palms. And that's file number 2024-050-LDR. Just the arrow. Okay, it's getting late. I think the computer wants to go to sleep. Okay, so City of Delray Beach has a long history of taking after its tree resources. In 2019, there was a tree canopy assessment that came up with 23% canopy citywide, gave a recommendation for 28% as a goal, and a project for planting 10,000 trees in 5 years. In 2020, comprehensive plan revision had many goals, policies, and objectives addressing tree canopy, and several of those policies are included in the staff report. In 2020, the tree planting program began. That's a 5-year, 10,000 tree with 2,000 trees a year that we are in the middle of. In 2022, a tree inventory and urban forest management plan was completed. And last year, the tree ordinance was changed to increase the mitigation requirements and also to increase the protection of trees. So in the urban forest management plan, there were multiple recommendations. One of those was to beef up the maintenance of tree resources. They are living entities. They require cutting at times. They can get diseases. There may be fertilization needs. So that was a big part of the recommendation to help in raising canopy and keeping the canopy that we have. On the right-hand side of that slide is actually the map that the tree inventory gave. So 10,599 trees on city properties and right-of-ways. And in that inventory, also maintenance recommendations were listed. At the December 12 Commission workshop meeting, there was a discussion of tree maintenance because trees are such an important resource for the city, bring so much value in so many different ways. There was a discussion of how do we improve the maintenance that we have on our trees. And that 10,599 number of trees entails a lot of effort. So question of where do we go, I made a suggestion that we take a look at the trees that are being planted under our tree planting program. So 2,000 per year, either planted or given away. This is a map showing the year 2 planting locations. 1,208 trees were planted. Most of those were on city properties or schools. And so looking at trees coming off of the 1-year warranty period, because in the tree planting they get watered and are looked after for a year after planting by community greening. To protect that investment, the suggestion was that we at least start maintaining after that 1-year warranty period those trees that we're planting. And this is an example of why that's very important. These are trees that were planted in the year 2 part of the project. This is just south of 10th Street on Swinton. There were 5 thatch palms that were there that came off of their 1-year warranty right as we hit about a 6-week dry period last year, and those palms became very stressed. Luckily, we were watching this and had been in discussions about maintenance for a while, so community greening did some additional watering. I'm happy to say that they look like they are recovering, but to protect the investment of the tree planting program, which has been $300,000 plus over the last 2 years, it's really important that we step up and do additional maintenance on those trees that are coming off. And then in the future, we can look at maintenance of trees citywide also. So the commission was in favor of having this ordinance change come forward. This is the current tree trust fund definition that is in the LDR definitions. The change is underlined in the second to last line. It's just adding and maintenance to make it clear that the tree trust fund monies can be used for maintaining tree resources. And the intent would be to change the agreement with community greening to add on an additional 2 years after the 1-year post-planting warranty period. And with that, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Is there anyone from the public that chooses to speak? Okay, how about some board comments?
I'd just like to say thanks for the opportunity to let me say how much I support the trees in the city and the tree planting program and your whole program. I think it's marvelous, and I think it's important. And of course, maintenance is important as well.
I've contributed to the tree fund. I had to pay an in lieu fee for not building a sidewalk in Lake Ida. Please allow people not to build sidewalks, otherwise I would have lost 9 trees. And Lake Ida was a subdivision built in the 30s that didn't have sidewalks except on major roadways. So just be careful about how that little program works. Don't lose trees because you got to build sidewalks. So anyway, I wrote a big check, but I'm very happy to have written the check. And the Public Works Director saved the day. She wanted the money to pay for new trees. So thank you very much.
Mr. Morris?
How do I say this without? It's 2 parts to this. One, I've always been a huge fan of the community greening program. I've been a recipient of many fruit trees and other trees in my yard. My question is, I guess a statement on a question that we're looking to change the definition to would allow the city to provide funds to the maintenance program of these trees. And I'm hesitant to support it because of just 2 parts. I'm looking at if you go back to that diagram near the railroad track, I think, and I don't want to sound offensive in a negative way, but those trees there, it doesn't have a water source other than Mother Nature. So me being financial conscious, I would never have planted those trees there. And so it's kind of hard for me to support something that, in my opinion, we're not making the best decisions on where we're putting these the trees. And knowing that all the other things that this city is lacking throughout the communities, it's kind of hard for me to support the city giving money for maintenance on something or a program that was introduced to the city where this wasn't a part of the initial presentation, that somewhere down the line that the city will have to support these programs. So for me, it's going to be hard for me to support that. That's all I have.
So I am just wondering, when this was put in, why they didn't, or whomever suggested it, didn't already have the maintenance in there. Is there a reason why we didn't include the planting and maintaining, since they're living things?
I mean, the ordinance was passed, actually, let me long before I was here. Honestly, from some of the discussions that I have had, I have been told that maintenance was considered to be under the language that was there, because it does say future trees and palms. And when you plant, you are going to have to take care of those trees.
Right, that's why
also.
It seems.
If you have a good program, I mean, you can't just put them in the ground.
Right.
But then you run a real risk. So in some discussions that I have had, I was told that maintenance was considered. This would make no doubt about it. And so really that's why it's coming forward.
Yeah, because the trees are important. I mean, it's not that I'm anti the trees. I'm just wondering why that wouldn't have been included originally, being that there's droughts or tree trimming that you need to make them grow. I'm not very good with trees, but maintenance, to trim, to prune, to do all those wonderful things, and it perplexes me why it wasn't in there already.
So I can't speak back to initially when it was put in, but just in general with tree planting programs, I mean, a 1-year warranty period is pretty standard. Mm-hmm. Most of the trees are going to establish within that period of time, the large majority. They have the extra watering. That's why we are putting in 15 to 25 gallon trees also, rather than very small trees in these kinds of plantings. We do have the 3 gallon trees at giveaways, but we're giving them to individual people. They're supposed to take care of them. These trees in our planting program are larger. I don't have an exact percentage, but in reading about other tree planting programs experiences, they are seeing, as we are, large majority making it through that year and being able to be on their own. There are things like trunk guards that are put on when equipment is used to do maintenance. They can damage a tree or push it over. There's a lot of things that can happen to that tree other than just watering. So this is a program that really needs to address trees other than just the tree planting program also. So I think in general, this language makes it perfectly clear that City of Delray Beach recognizes this need, but in a lot of ways, I think it's inferred that it should already be done. And we do have tree maintenance that's going on right now.
Okay. And sure, one real quick. So the other question that I would have would be, if there's a particular year that the maintenance costs more money, would that slow down the build, or would they have to take the money from another location from the fund?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so basically, if the maintenance becomes more expensive, will they continue to plant more trees around? How does that work?
Well, the tree planting program is only a 5-year program.
Okay. All right.
So
thank you.
At some point, right. We don't have enough money right now to fund all of year 4, but if we're not doing the maintenance to ensure the money we've already invested is going to be worthwhile, then it personally, I would say if we use 6 years to get the plantings because we don't have the money, then we should at least protect the trees that we already have in the ground.
Mr.
Oh, yeah,
please,
go ahead.
thank you.
I guess my follow-up, and it's along the same line of questioning. It's like I'm a gardener. I love to plant. And so this time of year that I know you certain things you plant. So is there a schedule on when we're planting? Are we planting during raining season? Are we planting outside of raining season? Do we have like a schedule like that? And then also a follow-up. I do recall that when this first presented to the City of Delray Beach, there was some conversation about the maintenance and the maintaining of these trees. I know there was some conversation in there about that. I don't remember the details of if there was any financial finance behind it, attached to it to try to with the maintenance. But it's kind of like hard. I still, the more I think about it, it's very difficult for me to support giving money to, and I agree with the point that you're making that we need to maintain, but at the same time, to the chair's comment, when you're presenting any program that's going to cost money, you have to take in consideration the maintenance and the cost that comes along with that. And it sounds like, to me, like we're reacting versus, it doesn't sound like this was a part of the plan at this level. And so, again, it's just like, and I'm very engaged in the city, just so many things the city need right now. We talk about the water plant, we talk about sidewalks, and we talk about safety. A lot of areas is completely dark in the city where it's very unsafe. It's just a lot of things right now, housing rehab, and the city already now complaining, well, I'm going to say complaining about, we're trying to get more money to go other places now. And so I just don't know where this money is going to be pulled from to maintain these trees. I just don't see it. That's all I have.
Yeah, that's my question too, is where does the money come from? Is it general fund money, or is it specific in lieu of funds, or what?
Yeah, the only money that's been used for the tree planting program is from the Tree Trust Fund. So the Tree
Which
Trust
is funded by the in lieu fees.
Right. Trees are taken down according to permit, and in the ordinance there is a calculation based on the canopy of trees and diameter, breast height. There's a calculation of the amount of money that money is to be used according to this definition. And so it's just a change to say for city trees, not only planting, but maintaining those trees that are planted.
Yeah, my point being, I agree with Mr. Carsarson. I don't think we need to be, there's a lot of stuff in Delray that needs money.
Yeah.
And we're talking about, but I think this is a I forget what you call it, but a separate pot type of thing.
Okay, funding.
Which is a separate pot of funding so that it's much easier to support this because it's not drawn out from all the other needs.
And I agree that we have to maintain the trees that we've already planted. My concern is that did you say 3 years into a 5-year plan?
We're near 3, yes.
And what happens if the maintenance ends up getting exorbitant and they're still planting more trees and we run out of money? Where does it come from there is what my worry is. Not that we don't plant the trees or maintain the tree planting.
Actually, sorry.
I mean, maybe we could recommend with an amendment so that our recommendation is that we agree with the maintenance so long as it is with the funds and doesn't.
So you're just making a recommendation to
Right.
commission on this one? But yes, I do want to clarify that this money does come from a separate pot, like
Okay.
was mentioned. So that is clear.
But if that pot dries up before the end of the year 5 because the maintenance wasn't thought, wasn't forward thinking, I guess, not saying that disrespectfully, but perhaps there's a drought and we needed more maintenance, not to be insulting to anybody. What happens in year 5 if we don't have enough money to plant trees, but we still have to maintain the ones that we've planted and are appreciating?
So I think a lot of times the board will make a recommendation with comments that they would like to have included to the commission on concerns like, so if what I'm hearing you correctly is we would say the board voted whatever to whatever to support the recommendation with concerns stated that the city be mindful of monitoring and balancing the
new trees
and planting expenditures.
Yes,
so
that's
that's
perfect.
typically how the board has handled things like that. If it's something you generally support, just making sure that staff includes those comments with commission.
Okay.
And if I may.
I think I misread something.
I liked it as well.
So I would say that the board is mindful, the board is concerned.
Can we go back to the definition? I think I misread something. Can you go back to the definition, please? I just want to see that last part. These funds shall be used to offset the city costs for future trees and ponds.
Mindful of the balance between
that
new plantings
Yeah.
and the maintaining the trees already planted. Something
Board
about
is
that.
concerned that a balance be maintained, as you said, between
Additional planting and
maintenance and further planting.
yeah, per
Or-
the
or
5-year plan.
further planting in accordance with
The
the
tree trust fund.
5-year plan. I'm gonna read. If I read this, it's gonna say this: that the board is concerned that a balance be maintained between maintenance and further planting of trees in accordance with the 5-year plan. Is that adequate?
Your
Danny?
budget?
Huh?
Because you're concerned about the budget running out, the
Okay.
finances running out, correct?
Yes.
We can certainly communicate that we'll go make sure we listen to the minutes adequately to get your intent,
Okay.
and we'll communicate that in the agenda cover memo.
Yeah, I'll let you. Okay.
Yeah, we can do that.
So we
Perfect.
can just say with our concern, and you'll take care of it. How's that sound?
Yeah,
And
perfect. So
actually,
when
I-
he reads
So
these
where's the words?
yes, go ahead. Do you have another
I'd
question?
just like to say that this actually was something that was brought up in the discussion leading up to this. That
Okay.
we needed to balance. In fact, we said we may need to slow down the planting, even
Great,
though
that-
the goal
yes.
of 5 years
Okay.
has been
Okay.
set.
Thank you.
Want a motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, move to recommend approval to the City Commission of Ordinance 06-24, amending the land development regulations, Appendix A definitions, to include a provision for use of the tree trust fund to offset maintenance costs for trees and palms by finding that the amendment and approval thereof is consistent with the comprehensive plan and meets the criteria set forth in the land development regulations, with our concerns included.
Sorry, 1 second. Does he have to read B then, since it's?
No, because it's not it's not an amendment. You
Okay.
guys are approving this.
Okay.
If that's what I'm hearing correctly, and she's going to share your concerns with the commission since it's a recommendation.
Yeah, Rebecca's going to put the words in for us.
Awesome, thank you. And then, Mr. Morse, did you want to second it?
Maybe not.
Maybe not. Okay.
I'll second it.
Diane, may I have roll?
Chris Brown,
Yes.
Christina Morrison absent, Gregory Snyder,
Yes.
Morris Costarfin,
Yes.
Aaron Savage is absent, Allison Thomas.
Yes. Thank you so much.
And that's all from staff, so we'll turn it over to you.
Oh, no staff comments then?
No, just a reminder that instead of the third Monday of the month in February, it'll be on the fourth Monday, which is February 26th.
Okay, thank you.
February 26th.
And then,
Nothing from me.
nothing? Thank you. Does anybody else have any comments to make? Well, thank you all for your patience under this sad time with me, so I appreciate it.
Thank you for being the chair.
Thank
Nice
you.
job.
Thank you.
Nice job.
I think that's all. Adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you.